Hi, welcome to the Futuristic Africa Talk, conversations that will shape the future of Africa. I am your host, Godswill Iwenofu. On this episode, we speak to Mamadou Toure on democratizing access to wealth in Africa and around the world. I can't wait to get into it. Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen.
The Futuristic Africa Talk. Brought to you by Ovid Capita. Conversations that will shape the future of Africa.
The African consumer is not who we're being told they are. They're complex, they're multidimensional, they're dynamic.
So people look around the world and they say, where is it that we have a consumer base of that sort of size, a young consumer base that's also ready?
I think there's a wide acknowledgement that Africa is rising. I think we're the optimistic first of the earth, really, because at the same time,
Africa doesn't need aid, but Africa needs a lot of inflow of capital from other areas of the world.
Better Africa means better global.
Àtúndò alárugẹ ká tún ṣe tó máa dàbí ibi tí àwọn ibi wá ń gba ìsinmi tí àwọn ibi ń pè ní tourism.
Investor, there remains an observation that the perceived risks of investing in Africa is much higher than the actual risk.
It is my hope that our aspiration will come to fruition.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the fifth episode of the Futuristic Africa Talk. On this episode, we have a very amazing guest for you, Mamadou Toure. I mean, this guy is a pioneer, he's a powerhouse, he's been all over the world. He was former general manager for Africa, General Electric. He was former Africa lead for investment in technology, media and technology at the International Financial Corporation. So it's an amazing guest that we have for you today, and we're ready to kick in. But before we do that, let me just give you the mic to my co-host to introduce himself for a minute. Eric, let's take over.
Mr. Mamadou, it's been a pleasure. Okay, I was looking forward to meeting you yesterday, but because of your time, and I have heard so many amazing things about you, and I really look forward to meeting you yesterday. But all the same, here you are today. I just want to express our thanks for making out time out of your busy schedule to be here with us on this podcast. We are grateful, sir. Thank you and welcome.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always great, to have a chance to share experience and perspective with like-minded people or people aspiring to do great things in life and to have great impact. So it's part of my responsibility to answer the call whenever it's possible to be able to share the perspective. So thank you, and let's kickstart, and I'll see how I can answer your questions, share experiences, learn also from you guys, and collect insights.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Mamadou, you have done a lot of things. You studied in France, studied in the US, etc., consulted in France, went into World Bank, General Electric. Now you're in Dubai, you're reading, code tokenization. So, but what I really want to tackle on today is, the topic of the episode is democratizing access to wealth, and you're a pioneer in that through tokenization. Most people don't know what Ubuntu Tribe, which is organization you're running now, is. So may we just start there. What is Ubuntu Tribe all about? What led you to this journey of founding Ubuntu Tribe and deciding to tokenize code and sell it?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. So, Ubuntu Tribe basically, if I go back to the meaning, the very essence of it, as you know, Ubuntu means I am because we are. I believe you live in South Africa at the moment, or spend some time there. So It's a word, an expression that came mostly from Southern Africa, and it means I am because we are. If you look also at Zimbabwe, they have a similar expression, but you realize that you can find it in so many other places. Like in Rwanda, for instance, in Kinyarwanda, they say Umubuntu, which are the men and the women. In DRC, in Lingala, they say Abantu, which are the people. In Swahili, they say Utu, which are men, women, people, and the humans in general. So Ubuntu tribe means the human tribe. And basically, the journey was based on my personal experiences. I've been lucky and privileged to indeed travel the world and work for some prestigious organizations and deliver highly impactful investments, helping the continent leapfrog. I was trying to find a way to look for solutions that could deliver both financial returns and social impact, so that we have a whole inclusive and shared prosperity model, animated by the vision of how do we create a society or a model where anyone could get equal access to opportunities, regardless to wealth at birth or place of birth. And when I was at GE and I decided to design and start my own business, it started with first consulting. And Ubuntu reflected very much this idea of trying to kind of really sort out this paradigm, especially because most of my life I've been, this investment banker, spending time in due diligence, investment deals, deploying project, finding significant opportunity that could scale through technology and really change the lives of people. And then I thought, okay, now we can develop a model that can help whomever wants to invest in Africa along those lines. That's how Ubuntu Capital started. And as I was traveling across the continent, wearing now my entrepreneur hat, I realized one thing, all our currencies kept on depreciating. People purchasing power were, dwindling by the day. Yet, our currencies, whether it's the Naira, the Kenyan shilling, the Ghana cedi, the Ugandan shilling, the South African rands, were not accepted outside of our borders, which for me was pretty unfair because, you might say Africa is poor, but Africa is wealthy, right? How come those currencies kept on depreciating? Nobody wanted them. And at the same time, we're sitting of the most prominent wealth on the planet, right? If you look at gold, for instance, gold gained 500% in 20 years and 5,000% since Nixon in 71. So I was like, okay, so this needs to change. And of course, my background being technology, I've always been a firm believer of leveraging on technology as an accelerator to human development and human progress by deploying solutions that can address issues like poverty or like education and so on. So because I was already familiar with blockchain, I figured, okay, why don't we just tokenize the gold, meaning issuing digital gold certificate digital certificate of gold ownership, so that people could basically access gold for as low as 5 cents, right? And this way we could then democratize wealth, where the actual gold that leaves our shores could also provide people a strong purchasing power and access to a savings instrument, just straight out of their mobile phones, right? So, and that's how the journey of Ubuntu Tribe began, through gold tokenization. And the whole idea for me, in full fairness to Ubuntu philosophy that I'm promoting, which infuses consciousness and responsibility in the way we do business, was to say, okay, it's nice to put out there a gold token so that people can buy from their phone and have gold that they could redeem at any time. But we need also to address the problem that is linked to gold, which is the mining of gold, the conditions in which the miners are, extracting the gold, and the environmental and health impact. For instance, mercury has damaging, seriously affecting people's health in those mines, but also the environment, as you find it in water, and it could be very, very damaging for people's health and for the environment itself. So the whole point was, okay, let's not just put out there a product, let's solve a problem. And to solve a problem, we needed to put together a full system end to end. Therefore, for a couple of years, we've looked at the best technologies that would allow to extract gold with zero mercury, and with a methodology that also increased the yield of gold extraction, which would then generate much better standards of living for the people in those mines, and also higher revenue due to higher yield and higher volume of gold extracted, while still providing transparency in the whole value chain, leveraging on blockchain to give the authenticity and reliability of the information for people to be able to track their gold from ground to vault. And therefore, our offer really encompasses this whole process of gold from ground to vault, but also we have a wallet that people can download that allows them to effectively trade the gold and keep it as a savings and potentially stake it and generate interest and returns out of their digital gold. And should one day they would want their gold to be delivered to them, we also have the full logistics in place for them to be able to receive the physical gold.
Wow, that's amazing. You've spoken quite extensively, because some of the things that you just read out are things that not many Africans or elsewhere, around the world are very privy to. Now, what are the challenges that you have faced trying to make this happen in Africa and other parts of the world? What are the challenges that you have faced?
I think we would need a 5-day podcast if I had to list all the challenges. No, but look, one thing about entrepreneurship and whatever it is, it could be a gold token or a bakery. It's hard, right? It's something that requires significant amount of great resilience, patience, and human psychology, and more importantly, faith, right? So of course, when I started it, I didn't expect things would be so challenging, because for me it just made sense, right? I mean, who's gonna reject the idea of having gold on their phone that gains on average 10% per year, and that gains 500% over 20 years, right? Must be a walk in the park. And then you realize that actually, the technology was the first challenge, right? So when we started, blockchain was not so, I would say, fashionable. People really had the biggest challenge understanding it, and I can be honest with you, they still have challenge understanding it. And that was just the education process around blockchain. You haven't even started introducing your business to any potential partner or investor. You first need to do a masterclass on blockchain, right? So you start with two hands in the back by getting people to embrace an industry, not only that is nascent, but that has suffered at the beginning from a big clash, or from banks and central banks and establishment institution who somehow put Bitcoin in the bracket of don't go, don't touch, right? And then here you are, you come and say, okay, I want to tokenize gold. It's like Bitcoin, but backed by real physical gold. But then people already have a bit of a negative perception because of the bad publicity that was done to it. Luckily, Bitcoin resisted and became a de facto necessity and a proof that you could really change the financial and the banking system by leveraging on technology through decentralized validation process. And we, of course, leveraged on the fact that there was a greater adoption and interest for it. And at the same time, we also realized that we would have to deal with a lot of regulation and other similar challenges because it's very much of a gray area, right? So you somewhere in the far west where the rules are not really clear, where and still it's a necessity. So you were dealing with the fact where technology moves much faster than law, and you need to trust it by getting involved, even if the law was still being put in place to be able to regulate such an environment. That was a second major challenge. The third challenge was, of course, funding, right? So what was frustrating for me was, okay, I've worked on all those significant major transactions on the continent. I was one of the very investor in the first telecommunication companies on the continent. When I was with BNP Paribas and World Bank, I made the first investment in the world in mobile money, mobile banking, when nobody really understood what it was about. It was even before M-Pesa, and I was involved in the early days of M-Pesa. And then mobile and TowerCo, where telecommunication companies also had to outsource the infrastructure. So I've been pioneering a lot of those things by anticipating where the future was going. But I was on the nice, comfortable side, sitting with my, suit and on my desk, and traveling the world and looking at where is technology going and what is Africa going to need to leapfrog. And then you're on the other side, you're on the entrepreneur side, and now you go and see those same guys you were part of back then. And then you realize that actually it was much more comfortable on the other side, and also, regardless of the network that you might have, when you are so ahead, we were really like 5 years ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Because I won't even say that adoption has kickstarted. I suspect adoption will really kickstart in 2023, 2024. So you need to hold on for that long when you know that what you have and what you're putting together is going to be a game changer, right? So it requires a lot of great endurance, etc., and patience. And that's why I always say to entrepreneurs, if you really believe in it, if you know it's gonna make a difference, and for you and for people around you and for people who use it, don't give up. Make sure you improve it because it's probably not ready or not perfect, and always focus on making it better, improve, more aligned to what your customer base want. And it's a series of trials and error, and we've gone through that. And it's and this is a message I want to tell entrepreneurs: you don't get it right on the first shot. Our first decks, and I've done hundreds of decks, or reviewed thousands of pitch decks of financial models. Yet, even on mine, when I go out there, we've had probably 40 versions since we started, right? So that's also something. The advice I want to give is, it's and when we started from 3 and a half years or so, we kind of searched the whole web and started attending conferences, and we realized that there were at least 90 projects or ideas, close to 100 ideas or projects linked to tokenizing gold, silver, or mines and things like that, right? 4 years later, 3.5 years later, there's only 3 that are alive today. Most of whomever has tried has died along the way. So yes, it's challenging, but again, for me, it's It's a do or die thing, right? If we don't get Africa to leverage of its natural resources, we're missing the next growth cycle because our real wealth is beneath our feet. And until we make sure that we can value it properly in a transparent manner, we might remain in those difficulties. And that's why for me, blockchain is a huge opportunity. So when you know that now we're live, we're one of the 3 that have made it to the finish line 3 years later. And of course, it's a major achievement, right? Because it was mostly supported and funded through friends and family, and suddenly now that we're reaching out to venture capital. And we were lucky to have a good network of people supporting and a team that believed enough in the project and made a lot of sacrifice to take it where it is. That at this point, you realize that it's super hard to launch, but it's harder to last. Right, and that's where really you have a whole different set of challenges on your journey, right? And of course, one other thing, when the main challenge being in Africa was access to capital, which is one other major issues that most entrepreneurs have. But think of this. That's the very reason why I started blockchain, right? At some point, I was thinking of setting up, an impact fund combining technical assistance to support, startup entrepreneurs with ideas that could change the world. And then I realized that it's a very small world where there are very key rules to kind of start your fund, etc. And then I thought to myself, we need to decentralize finance. We really need to have a system where something much more reliable than crowdfunding that use blockchain for traceability of investments, for traceability of reporting, and so on, so that we could effectively come and tap into the largest number of people to fund projects, to take a stake in initiatives, so that we start relying on ourselves to be able to really create growth for our community. And this for me was a very much of a no-brainer. And you know why? Simple. No. I'm from Cameroon, and I grew up in Douala and in the western part. So my mom is Bamileke. And in Bamileke, tribes and lands, we have something called tontine, right? It's like the susu a bit in Ghana, if I may, right? Where everybody comes in, in the community, somebody has a project, and people in they meet twice a month, every 2 Sundays. And then the person presents their projects, and the village and the community decides to contribute $100, $50, $10 to the project for the person to be able to thrive. And it's been a major success, and it's been there for centuries. Now, you have the other system, mostly inspired from the Western world, which is bank-led. Now, the problem of a bank, let's say you're in a village somewhere, and you need money to increase the performance and the productivity of your land to where you grow, I don't know, cassava, right? Now, here's the issue. The banker doesn't know you for a bar of soap. He's gonna ask for different forms of documents, collateral, electricity bill, water bill, kind of crazy stuff that, of course, they won't be able to provide, right? And the banker sits in his desk, in his office, 100 kilometers from you. He can't check anything. So he's gonna see you as a high-risk profile, and most probably won't give you the money, right? And it's the same if you sit in Africa, you might be the brightest entrepreneur. The guys in the Silicon Valley, although there's a good trend at the moment, bringing more investment capital in the region, the guys in the Silicon Valley will perceive Africa as risky, right? You're not in the US. It's less structured as a market. And how am I controlling? How am I making sure? So blockchain is powerful for that. Now, why don't we apply this model to the tontine, the Stockfels, or the Susu, where you have decentralized finance, but on the blockchain from your phone. That changes everything. And guess what? In those tontines and in those community lending funding models, the default rate is close to 0.4%. Why? Because you have peer pressure. Because I know where you live, because we can solve it together as a community. That's where blockchain is going. And that's why I decided to go into that space. That's how it can really literally change our nations, our people, and not just in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, in all those places where we can use technology to leapfrog a legacy system and really build new models for shared prosperity, right? Why? Because today I can do reporting on the blockchain on a daily basis, and I know it's real, right? And you know how much I made, how much I sold, etc. Then I'll be more comfortable to lend you the money. And because you can use smart contract, I can program that money. That changes everything. I can say, okay, I'm going to give you $100, and I'll disburse 20 now, and I'll disburse the next 40 if you reach that milestone. And it's automated, and the smart contract operates. Then you start creating an industry, an economy of trust. And that's a game changer. Now, you need to understand two very important things, right? Is that finance is based on two fundamental principles: asymmetry of information and collateral. Asymmetry of information means I'm going to invest in that stock on the stock market because I believe it's going to go up. And whomever is selling it might not think it's going up or might need the money. So I have a perception and information that you don't have that allows me to trade. And because I buy it, then the thing goes up. That's asymmetry of information, right? Now, collateral, which is probably even more important. Historically, capitalism has been based on collateral. The way it even started in the 16th century, you would go to one of those places where you would have a paper saying that you have land, or give you gold, and they will give you a receipt saying you have this amount of gold, right? And then they will give you money, and then you come and get your gold back once you've repaid the money. Collateral. And the main collateral for a very long time was gold and real estate, land, okay? Those are the two things Africa has the most on the planet. 60% of the arable land, 50% of the gold, 80% of the platinum, 70% of the diamond. You go. Suddenly, I can use blockchain, tokenize those resources, fractionalize ownership, and share the wealth to everyone. That's what Ubuntu Tribe is all about.
All right.
Set up this model so that we can expand, not just with gold, but with so many other things. That's how you reverse the trend.
Awesome.
Does it make sense?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
A lot to say about this. Okay, a whole lot. Now, coming to Africa, because you as an African, I am an African. Now, we have so many challenges when it comes to democratizing access to wealth in Africa. And over time, we've had people, let's say organizations or individuals that come out to say, okay, we want to fix the problem of Africa because Africans are poor, whether we like it or not, but some of them do not have access to creating this wealth. Now, Africa sits at the confluences of two related and mutually reinforcement, let's say, developmental challenges, that is poverty and inequality. And that has sparked debates all around Africa about wealth inequality. Now, some few weeks ago, I stumbled over an article that says 87% of what the world's poorest will be from Africa. Now, by 2030, 87%. Now, if these current trends of wealth inequality continue, now, if something were to be done about democratizing access to wealth in Africa, what should it be?
Okay. So I won't comment. I don't know where you got those stats. I don't think they're true, but let's assume it is, right? Because the definition of wealth can be very relative, right? But that's a topic for another day. Let's assume that 87% of the poorest are in Africa in 2030. And so, which is weird because the middle class in Africa today, according to McKinsey report in 2020, is close to 380 million people, which is bigger than the population of the United States. Okay,
yes.
Which is bigger than the population of Europe, right? So there's been a huge emerging middle class, and this happened for one particular reason.
That is it.
Greater access to electricity, but more important, greater telecommunications and access to information. And I remember we started with GSM, where people said, those guys don't even have fixed line. Why do you want to give them mobile? And I said, because it's very simple. The legacy infrastructure of drawing cables all across such a landmass doesn't make sense when you can just plant an antenna and cover the full coverage, and people are mobile with that. It made a big difference. And I remember, and that's why I'm always careful about statistics. It was about MTN Nigeria at the time, and I was we're looking at structuring. They just got the license, and we're looking at structuring a funding to fund the capex of the company. Yeah, and so we worked with development financial institution in Europe, and so we anticipated after 5 years, you know, it was a market of 130 million people, only 300,000 fixed line at the time. Yeah. And we said, we think Nigeria will reach easily 1 million subscribers after 5 years. And they thought I was completely crazy. And what they were saying is, I mean, those guys don't have money, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have electricity. How do you think if they haven't been able to get, if they've been only able to get 300,000 fixed line in 30 years, how will they get 1 million mobile lines in 5 years? And I said, very simple. It's about leapfrogging. It's about an opportunity and having something that is affordable and it's prepaid. So they pay what they use. No commitment, right? Plus a few other things. It's because it's vital for them to communicate. It's part of the culture too, and it will faster trade. After 5 years, after those 5 years, it's not 1 million customers mobile customers that were in Nigeria. It's 15 million. Okay, so when you talk about statistics, I'm always very wary about all those alarmist people who always kind of, you know, tag Africa with, okay, they're poor. And I remember this thing from The Economist, the hopeless continent. I didn't sleep for 5 days when I saw that cover, right? Luckily, they changed it with Africa Rising 10 years later during the World Cup. But let's be wary of statistics. I do agree there is poverty. I believe that there's a lot of untapped demand and inaccurate statistics that is due to lack of data, right?
Yes.
The gray economy in Africa is so much bigger than one can think. And you're both from Nigeria. I can't find a much bigger gray economy market than this one, right?
Yes.
Who would believe today that the biggest traded market for Bitcoin in the world is Nigeria? Do you realize that?
No.
Okay, true story.
Wow.
And they've been in the top 3 for the past 2 years now.
Wow.
It's not the US who's the biggest trading market. So let's be wary of statistics. And what it shows again is that if you come with the right technology that solves people's problem, Africa will be the first. And of course, the Naira lost what? 40% of its value? One. Second, foreign exchange control. Third, remittance. Of course, people are going to use crypto. That's why the central bank moves so fast with CBDC. It's going to be the same if you have a real asset backing it. Intra-African trade, international trade. You have a scarcity of dollars.
Yeah.
Right? So there are alternatives that are coming for people that will change their lives. And when you have, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Okay? Now, guess what? Today, Africa is the last frontier. I'm going to give you some other statistics, right? By 2050, 7 out of 10 baby in the world will be born in Africa. By the end of the century, there'll be 4 billion Africans. This is the biggest workforce humanity has ever had. Are they going to starve? No. Why? We have 60% of the arable land. So poverty in Paris might not be the same. In my place, when somebody doesn't have a job and is really desperate, he goes back to the village. He's sure to eat, he's sure to drink, and luckily he can communicate. Why? Because you throw something on the ground, it grows. So I do understand this whole logic about the aid narrative and let's put Africa with the worst perspective so that we can get money and take 30% and deploy it there. This is not me. That's not why I'm here, right? The reality is there is a huge opportunity. And indeed, if you don't want statistics of 87% of the poorest to materialize, I'm going to give you an example. Congo. Do you have an idea what's the estimated underground resources of that nation?
$1 trillion.
How much?
$1 trillion.
Okay, Esiri, Eric, what's your take? What would you say?
$7 trillion.
Okay, $42 trillion.
Wow.
That's underground. And those are World Bank figures. Okay.
Wow.
So unless we really, really, really want to mess it up, right? We've had and this opportunity, which is our land and what's underground for millennia, but we're not prepared. Now we have some of those technology that allows us to be prepared and to leverage on it. Today, you can tokenize underground resources. I'm currently talking to some governments and some mine owners to tokenize the resources without having to extract it from the ground, right? And as you do that, because it's real value, if you have a right kind of report, then you can create wealth. And because it's on the blockchain, you have full traceability. This is the opportunity. It's now. So no, I don't think 87% of the world poorest in 2030 or 2040 will be in Africa. On the contrary, I think with all the mess that's going to happen over the next decade, a lot of people from Europe, US, and other places will migrate to Africa. You know why? It's less polluted. To build something, you don't have to destroy the old. And now you have less war, better climate, and a population that is more prepared, and leadership that is starting to understand how to value the land and its people. There's still a long way to go, but we've come from far.
We have. Thank you so very much. Now we know that some statistics out there which they put out there are so wrong about the African people and Africa at large. And thank you for clearing that up. Just one more question before I let my host not take it. Now let's talk about investment in Africa, because you are in the business of Africa. You want to see the African man was liberated from poverty, to live above a certain means. Now, investments such as the venture capital and the private equity, there have been a pathway to create meaningful wealth for a man like me, but only a few are very privy to this. Now, the question is, how should the African markets reconsider democratizing investment opportunities so that a broader segment of investors across the socioeconomic spectrum can be part of it in a safe and well-informed manner, especially in Africa?
Okay. You see, I gave the example about the tokenization of underground resources, where basically, let's say you have a gold mine, or which is what we're doing with a few now, where we would say, okay, the actual reserve have been estimated to this much, okay? But, I don't have the money to list it in the Toronto Exchange or, mining exchange or commodity exchange and things like that, right? Or the process to do the study is going to be so expensive that I need to go and find some junior mining companies in Australia or in Canada or in the UK to do the work and take a big chunk of it. Now, what if you say, okay, I have this plot of land, that's a high level estimated resources, and I'm going to issue a security token to raise capital to do a progress in terms of study, right? Have more robust studies, and then raise and then also use that money to pay for the equipment to extract the resources. But as I issue this security token, because it's on the blockchain, then it's a digital share certificate that people can buy from their mobile phone. And that's the game changer. Because once I can do it with that, then I can call the community around the mine, the people in the city, the people in the nation, the people in the region, and the people around the world to participate. It's fully decentralized. That's the game changer, right? And you're going to tell me it's harder said than done. I'll give you an example, right? MTN in Ghana, they listed some of their shares, and they understood that the man on the street doesn't have stock, doesn't buy stock like this, go and buy Apple and Microsoft shares, no. But they have this, and they have mobile money. So people could use their mobile money account to buy shares of MTN, Momo. That was the beginning of a whole new trend that needs to be much accelerated. And what blockchain brings in the narrative is reliability, transparency, authenticity, and traceability of the transactions.
All right.
Now, as an entrepreneur, I gave you a few tools before. That's how you democratize access to wealth. There's this expression, like, I sabi talk pidgin English now. So in Cameroon, of course, I would have learned pidgin too. So I grew up in Douala, and so you say, hey, that man, he eat alone, hey, he chop money, that's all, chop alone, okay? So so reality is, the problem of our entrepreneurs, right, is they're very lonely. It's a lonely path, right? To find capital, to find like-minded people, etc., and they end up having to carry everything on their shoulders, right? But with decentralized finance today, you don't have to carry the whole thing alone anymore, and also you don't chop alone anymore, because you invite others to grow with you, to bring their skills, to bring a bit of money, to bring a market, etc. And that's why you can even use a decentralized autonomous organization where it's all regulated. That's where it changes the game. And it is urgent for our generation and our people to embrace this, because it's a small world in first class, and the door is closed. story. There's not enough space for everyone. So you need to create your own environment and leverage on technology to create your own wealth. But what I invite everyone to do is, as you create that wealth, don't repeat the mistake of our predecessors. Don't fall into the materialist trap, because you will just send your money back where instead of reinvesting into creating generational wealth, into empowering your own people. And that's the challenge that I'm seeing in crypto today, right? I see a lot of our brothers, sisters who are trading, and the next thing they do, they're going to go and buy I don't know, a Ferrari or something like that. What value does it bring? Well, if we could reinvest, start a business, create jobs, that's also our responsibility. And that's why Ubuntu as a value is important. We need to not lose our values as we rise above, because it is those values that have made Africa resilient despite of everything that has happened to us, from wars, colonization, slavery, etc. Right? That resilience was that capacity to be with others and show solidarity to your tribe, to your village, to your people, and understand the power of the collective over the individual.
All right.
And that's why we decided to call it Ubuntu. And even our model is structured around that. 10% of all transaction fees on our platform are redistributed to mining communities for them to build schools and hospitals, but also manage to help women cooperative in their agriculture and give them digital marketplace so that you can create dual income in the household.
Wow.
Now you have a circular economy. Now you have an Ubuntu economy based on a baseline, which is together we rise.
Yeah. Awesome.
Ubuntu.
Mamadou, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, you've spoken beautifully about a lot of this. The first time I actually learned about you was when you were part of a panel at the Mo Ibrahim Foundation Governance Weekend. And you spoke about the capacity of Africans to develop themselves and utilize technology. There was a point where a young lady asked a question about, being given finance, being given help, and you quickly, reminded the crowd that no, we can't be asking for stuff. We have to create opportunities, and we are not getting money. There's a reason why, and it's either your ideas are not good enough. You have to innovate. You have to find a way. You have to pioneer. So that's what I want to talk to you. I've been pioneering a lot of things, like you've just mentioned in this podcast. What led you, what entices you in trying to pioneer different fields? Right now, you're pioneering tokenization. I mean, although you say that there were about 100 tokenization ideas, you're the first guy that I've ever heard talk about tokenization in Africa and do it in Africa before even Ovid Capital came with the Ovid token. So please, what led you to this journey of pioneering things in life? And if others want to follow up with your footsteps, how do they do that?
What led me to pioneer? I think, first of all, I consider myself as a problem solver, right? Second, I consider myself as extremely lucky because I was born in Cameroon. My parents were immigrants, so I had to arrive in France and adapt, and I was lucky to be sent to some the most prestigious high school at the time, where I think, and I understood something very early. Is like, not everybody has the same chances, but there's so much talent and potential where I come from, and there were probably smarter people than me who deserve to be here, but will never make it here because they didn't have the same opportunity, right? So for me, it starts with, what do you stand for? What do you believe in, right? And I believe in a world where everyone deserves equal access to opportunities, regardless of place of birth or wealth at birth. One. Second, the pioneering approach is, okay, this is what I stand for, and that's the problem I'm trying to solve. What is it that I can do to solve that problem? And what are the obstacles today preventing to solve the problem. And because technology is my prism, right? What are the technologies that we can deploy or think of to solve this problem? So before I became a business entrepreneur, I've been a social entrepreneur most of my life, right? I started my first NGO, I was 19. I was in France, just, was finishing high school, and I realized that we needed to set up a program and a structure for all those African students leaving Africa and coming to Europe to study. And we needed to make sure that the best talent could go back one day to Africa and get real opportunity, because at the time, to be honest, not a lot of those multinationals, we needed to localize more the management, etc., and give a chance to all those graduates to come back and help the nation, right? So I pioneered in the NGO space because I wanted to solve a problem, and I gathered young students from the top universities and colleges in Europe to come together in an association called Afrique Tandem. And we did the first recruitment forum. We built libraries in Mali, in other places, and so on, and mentoring for young students who were in high school in Africa and who would arrive in Europe. So pioneering is to see a problem, find the opportunity, and design the model that would help solve this problem in a way that was not done before, right? And the other way I pioneered was when I was with the World Bank, and I was getting very frustrated with all those structural adjustment plans, with IMF policies, with the fact that Europe has an agenda for Africa, America has an agenda, China has an agenda for Africa, but what was Africa's agenda for itself? And that's where I went to see the vice president then, and I said, okay, we need Africans to take their destiny at hand. So mobilize young leaders from Africa and the continent, from Africa and beyond, from Dakar to Dar es Salaam, from Dar es Salaam to Detroit, Cape to Cairo, to be together and set up a vision for the continent, right? Based on, if we had to change Africa now, what would need to be done, right? And the approach was disruptive. We got 1,000 young leaders. We got top, and we started mobilizing leaders to support us. We launched during the World Cup in South Africa. And luckily, we got President Obasanjo as a chairperson. We got mentoring from people like Nelson Mandela, Graça Machel, and others, And then we designed that vision, right? And the vision was based on bringing the best in the different fields, from infrastructure to agriculture, and say, okay, what is our problem? How can we fix it? And let's make sure we put it out there so that our leaders have no excuses, right? And then we put together the manifesto and went to present it at the World Economic Forum in Davos and at the African Union Summit. And 3 years later, 47 heads of states ratified the vision for Africa, largely inspired from the work we did. So what I have to say about it is pretty simple. It's, it takes a vision, but it first takes the drive and the willingness to solve a problem, right? And it takes a lot of faith in oneself, and the capacity to believe that you can. And if you think you can't, then surround yourself with the people who can, because if you really want to, you have no excuse. Okay, so pioneering needs to be a state of mind. The whole Silicon Valley, the whole point is that there's a whole ecosystem enabling pioneers, right? You're surrounded with like-minded thinkers, with access to capital, with access to market, and all that help the top pioneers to emerge. But I'll tell you one thing. Do you know the reason why they speak so much about Zuckerberg and Elon Musk?
Because it's
or
successful.
maybe Jeff Bezos and maybe a few more? Why, in your opinion?
because they are successful, the business succeeded, and they get global success.
Okay, now, but they're not the only ones, right?
Yeah, probably because
the reality is that, yeah, they're problem solver. And one thing is that whether it was Bill Gates, even Zuckerberg, or Steve Jobs, they all said one common thing: don't think of putting a product out there. Think of solving somebody's problem or people's problem, right? Because once you're in that mindset, then you're sure to win. So it starts with a sense of service, right? And of course, the reason why we speak about only 2, 3 is because there are not that many out there who have had exceptional growth. So it's also about understanding that 100 will try, 2 might succeed, but the 98 who didn't succeed should continue perfecting what they're doing so that the turn comes sooner or later. It might not be as great, but we give them the environment to succeed. And when you don't have, like we do in Africa, then we need to work more together as a collective and put the right fundamentals and the right structure and leverage as much as possible on technology for it to happen. So pioneering requires, to summarize, it requires the capacity to identify a problem first, the drive and the determination to solve it, the courage to start, the vision to surround yourself, and the grit and resilience to see it through. And the humility, finally, to accept to change it when it's not perfect. And it will never be perfect.
All right. Just one more thing from me. So before that, thank you so much, Mamadou. Going back to the point you said earlier, about access to finance in Africa and pioneering or innovating to solve that problem. That is actually what led to the Ovid token and Ovid Capital. Ovid token, it's a fund based on the blockchain, and we're trying to raise funds from Africans in Africa to invest in African startups and SMEs that are pioneering solutions for African problems. Now, we've also faced similar quick problems to you, and that's why it's very interesting to have you here, because we're in the same space with you, we play in the same market with you, face similar problems to you. And I like the way you tackled everything from regulations, etc. But the thing I want to understand is, how did you bring it down to, for lack of a better word, common African man? How were you able to bring down gift? And for those who didn't know, God, your God tokens are called gifts, and common man and gain trust.
Okay. I can't claim we've succeeded yet. Let's put it out there. We're far from where we want to be, right? And it's important to have the humility to acknowledge that adoption is probably the toughest nut to crack in an environment where you are really pioneering. Okay, where you have to deal with mixed information about the actual industry, where you have to do a lot of education for people to really understand and embrace. So, rule is to keep it simple, right? And I always say one thing: if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old with easy, simple words, then you won't get adoption. So it starts by bringing, and blockchain and crypto is something extremely complex, right? And how do you bring it back to the very simplest way for somebody to understand? That's a thing you want to spend time on. And in our approach, what we say is basically we are putting gold in people's mobile phone for them to build savings or access the global economy in a frictionless manner, right? Then you will say, okay, fine, but where is the gold? People like to touch in Africa, right? Intangible is something, that's why people like to have receipt or to get proof. But at the end of the day, what we tell them is, okay, you can redeem your gold for minimum amount, and we'll send the gold so that you can see the physical gold and have it, which is very important, right? So you want to understand people's experience and needs. Even if they can't do much with it, they will try to have a piece of it, right? The third thing is to really work with networks and networks of networks. Communities are very important. You need your community. You need a core of people who will believe in it enough to really take it to other people, right? And with the adequate narrative that anyone can understand. So building your community is very important. The second thing is partnership, right? In an environment where it's hard, to get 10, 20, 50, $100 million for marketing, which has been the historically traditional way to get people know and buy your product. You're not an Airtel or a Vodacom or an MTN or Orange who would spend like $150 million on marketing so that people can buy your airtime, right? Then you need to work smart, right? And leverage on communities. And to come back to your point earlier, when you asked me about this poverty thing, and it's important to touch it. So let's think of, in our case, before I even go to NFT, gold, that's why also we chose gold. It's something that anyone understands. Did you know that the best elite troops in the world of most countries, in their survival kit, they give them an ounce of gold? Did you know that? Why do they do that? Because they know that wherever you go, even if you're in the middle of the Amazon forest, in the Congo Basin, in the jungle in Vietnam or somewhere else, that ounce of gold will bring you back home because everybody know what it is and everybody can monetize it. I can't say the same about Bitcoin. But if we can get people to understand that our gift coin, Gold International Fungible Token, it's a gold that you own, but as a digital certificate, then you've won a very important battle. Now, in your case, it's a decentralized fund, okay? So what you're telling people is, instead of, if you don't have access to the stock markets and if you want to help startups, etc., why don't you deploy $100, $200 in a fund that would invest in other projects for you and give you returns, and better returns that the banks give you, right? So you need also to find the right words but in our approach is we also understand that capital is key, right? So you have more chances if you raise enough funding to market it, but network is even better. Why? Because you have so many people who now become your ambassadors who help push the movement, right?
Yes.
And think of when you were mentioning about this poverty thing, when I think about it, NFTs, right?
Yeah. Non-fungible tokens.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you know that now you can put your art and your music as an NFT, and you have full traceability of who listens and who's paid for it and so on, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know also that 98% of the music consumed around the planet has African roots?
No.
Sure.
Okay. Now let me sing a song for you. Okay?
All right.
Ready?
All right.
Sure.
So I'm sure you heard it say Zamina mina waka waka Zamina mina zangalewa. This is Africa. Ring the bell, right?
Yeah,
Do you know
Shakira.
where this song is from? Okay, thank you. But actually, it's not Shakira who wrote the song. It actually comes from people from my region in Cameroon 30 years ago. I was singing it way before the World Cup. And I'm sure those guys, they probably are sitting with nothing right now. If they had made that thing an NFT, if NFT existed then, they would be multimillionaires. Because the rights, etc., would be distributed in a proper way. And when you think of that, it also tells us that we are not harnessing our talents the way we should. So yes, if you don't have a job, you might have a talent or skill or something. Guess what? You won't sign with the label, so what? Now you can make it an NFT. You have a group of followers, right, who really like your music, who will buy the song, and you can program for them to sell the song to their communities and get a commission out of it. Do you still need a label? No, because you have a whole community that are your marketing agents. And it's all traceable. And everybody gets every time it's a, think of a concert. How many fake tickets? And I'm not pointing at Nigeria, right? To get to a concert, right? In the black market or wherever. Right now, Nigerians are like, those are my brothers. That's why I like to pick on them. They're like the English-speaking Cameroonian on the other side of the border. So, and I've done so much. I mean, look, it's my country of adoption, so I love to pick on it. But point is, you would go to a concert and there would be more ticket than people, or more people than ticket, but they all have a ticket. True or not? And it's happened like this everywhere, even in Europe. So why? Because of the black market and the fake tickets. But if it's an NFT, the artist knows how many has been sold, right? The commission gets paid automatically. All that. You talk about wealth redistribution in a transparent way, leveraging on community, and using the community to market it. Here is one. Here is many. And it's true for art. It's true for so many other things. Creativity is one major strength. In 10, 20 years, maybe AI will have taken over all the jobs, but may not be able to create the way humans do. That might be our chance to play. So community and network of network is the future. And that's also the power of this whole decentralization that blockchain is bringing. I can tap into networks of networks and groups.
All right. So we're out of time. Eric, do you have any other question from your end?
Yes, I just have this last one. You talked about building a community. We talked about solving problems. Now, my last question before we let you go. What hope is that soon everyone, now speaking of Africa now, will be able to access services that will help them create wealth, stable, grow, even prosperity, especially here in Africa. So what is the hope for us here in Africa to create wealth very soon?
A very good question. I can't give a clear answer. I'll just be the usual analytics guy that I am using AI or banking predictions or market predictions. You look back and you look at the trends in the past and how those trends might repeat in the future, right? So let's take, and to stay in the sector, let's think of mobile money, okay? I would say 10 years ago, the banking penetration in Africa was 17%, 20% max, if you're lucky, okay? But once you've introduced mobile money, mobile banking, it moved to 40%, if not more, right? Why? Because your mobile money account is linked to a bank account, but you didn't have to go through all the lesson process, right? So we leapfrog. And now Nigeria is allowing mobile banking to start, right? But look at M-Pesa. Do you know that M-Pesa moves 40% of Kenya GDP through mobile money payments and transactions? Okay. So this says a lot. We are somehow at that crossroads, and I'm glad some African governments have understood it by anticipating the blockchain, by getting into CBDC. It has its pros and cons, but that capacity of anticipation is very important. So I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the decade, more than half, if not more, 60% of Africans use blockchain to transact or in their company to trace, to operate, and cryptocurrency. It's highly probable because unlike in many models, even the central banks are now adopting it, meaning that you'll be in a point where you have the e-Naira and the Naira, but people will encourage you to use the e-Naira or the e-Rand because it gives more data, more reliability, less falsification, and so on and so forth. So it's taking time, and I would say regulators are slower than technology, but once regulation takes its full-on space, adoption will be certainly massive.
All right. With that said, once again, Mamadou, thank you so much for availing yourself. I'm very proud to have you as an icon, to have you as a role model, and you have not, let me down. But thank you once again. Lessons and well wishes with the endeavors that you're going through at Ubuntu Tribe, and from me, that is it. Thank you so much, Eric. Do you have any other final words?
Thank you.
There's so much. There's so much, still in stock. And I believe when we call upon you next time, you will avail us your time. So from me, it's a very big thank you, sir. We are very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I am also really, really proud to announce today that our gift coin, our gold international fungible token, Ubuntu Tribe, is today the first ever regulated stable coin in the world.
Wow.
At sovereign level. Yeah.
Wow.
So it took us a while to get there, and we're very proud to have achieved this very important milestone because it's a game changer. We've passed all the hurdles, all the reviews, the audits, etc. And we are a regulated stable coin. And we're the first one in the world to be fully regulated at sovereign level. So to my knowledge, we are the first one in the world. And I know USDT is not regulated, USDC is not regulated, and we are backed by real physical asset. And it's a game changer because it's a global play for us. And we are here to change the world. And that kind of recognition proves that we're doing the things right, with the right approach, with the necessary rigor and precision to the point of being satisfactory to some of the best regulators in the world, and we're extremely proud of that. Ubuntu, together we rise.
Big kudos to you. Big kudos to the team. Big kudos to you. And also to add on that, Ubuntu Tribe is from Africa, so the big kudos to the continent.
Africa rising. It's the new Wakanda.
From Africa to the world. I salute
Wakanda
you.
forever.
Wakanda forever. That's
Awesome.
amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. Big kudos to you and the team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not investment or financial advice. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. None of the information on this podcast constitutes or should be relied on as a suggestion, offer, or other solicitation to engage in or refrain from engaging in any purchase, sale, or any other investment-related activity with respect to any STO or other transaction.